The New Orleans Saints dominate in their season opener, especially on the defensive side, and it's never felt more right to be wrong. We got all that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome in to another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much, as always, to all you everydayers out there making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget, you can always subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss the latest episodes. And if you want to keep the conversation going, exclusive film studies, Q&As, early access, inside information, you can become a Locked On Saints insider by simply heading to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSaints to join a community I would love for you to be a part of. As always, I am your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on your favorite social media, your New Orleans Saints expert credential member of the media. You can find me as the senior writer and reporter over at Saints News Network, Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation site covering the New Orleans Saints every Tuesday on the Locked On NFL podcast, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. In today's episode of Locked On Saints, we're breaking down a big-time 16-15 win for the New Orleans Saints over the Tennessee Titans. We're going to take a look at what's next based upon some other performances from around the NFL, how the offense took a little bit of time, had the growing pains that we expected, but showed up when it mattered most. But the biggest story from this game is simple. The New Orleans Saints may have already stamped their claim for the best defense in the NFL. They looked absolutely remarkable during this game. Whether it was the 10 hits that they got on Ryan Tannehill, the 4 sacks, including 1.5 by Carl Granderson, who had a remarkable day all on his own, had a half sack from Brian Brzee, had interceptions from Marcus May, Marshon Lattimore, and Paulson Adebo. Humongous victories all over that New Orleans Saints defense. Add into that a little bit of special teams defense as well. The blocked punt by Zach Bond. This is a team, the New Orleans Saints, who had only 7 interceptions all season long last year, and they end up with 3 interceptions in this game alone. When I picked the Tennessee Titans to beat the New Orleans Saints last week, I did say that the one thing that would change my mind was a first half turnover that the New Orleans Saints were able to pick up some points off of. We saw that again and again and again throughout this game, and I was wrong. And I'm very glad that I was wrong about this New Orleans Saints team getting this victory here, because a Week 1 victory for the 5th season in a row is now a franchise record for the New Orleans Saints. This is what the New Orleans Saints needed. They needed to be able to come out here and establish a sustainable way to win, and they won a very physical game here. No big fourth quarter comeback, none of this stuff where you needed the other team to implode in order for you to win. Nothing that can be misconstrued as anything other than this New Orleans Saints team showing up when it needed to, and especially on the defensive side. I cannot get enough of this New Orleans Saints defense. They were top 5 in the NFL in sacks last year, but they were toward the bottom of the NFL when it came to both pressures as well as hits on the quarterback. This New Orleans Saints team today showed you that they were able to make those kinds of plays. They were able to get into the head of a Ryan Tannehill. They were able to force those turnovers, the 3 interceptions. This team was exactly what they needed to be in this matchup, holding Derrick Henry to just 60, right around 60 rushing yards, 63 rushing yards. Tajay Spears had 27, including a big 17-yard run. But then if you look at the passing game, Ryan Tannehill with a 28.8 quarterback rating, passer rating in this game. Absolutely atrocious performance in the passing game for the Tennessee Titans. And that's not just because they were bad. It was because the New Orleans Saints defense established themselves as a dominant force very quickly in this game. They already had their backs pinned up against the wall right off the start. The fumble by Rashid Shaheed on the opening kickoff, recovered by the Tennessee Titans. It looked like things could easily get out of control from that first moment. 4 seconds, and there were already shenanigans in this New Orleans Saints game and in this matchup. But the Saints defense able to force the field goal, and we saw that over and over and over again. No touchdowns by this Tennessee Titans offense. Only one big play on the screen pass to Derrick Henry, very well executed there. Demario Davis making the play on what looked like the run game, but then the play action set up the screen very, very well. Outside of that, though, that Tennessee Titans offense had a lot of trouble being able to move the ball and being able to do really anything with it at all. And so that is going to be the story of this game. This New Orleans Saints defense, one that Derek Carr praised coming into New Orleans, one that was a top 5 defense last year, one that was number 2 in the entire NFL against the pass last season, now adding the pass rush, looking very good against the run again. This defense is the real deal and has already staked its early claim as the best defense in the NFL. But in order to really be able to capitalize on that, the New Orleans Saints offense needs to show up improved next week. That's what we're going to look at here. The Saints offense struggled early. Yes, they did show up when it mattered most, so we'll give them some credit for that. But the early struggles, and especially the continuing concerns on the offensive line, are the types of issues that if they don't get cleaned up can cause some big problems down the stretch of the season. Let's break that down, take a look at where the Saints are and where they should be headed next on the offensive side of the football. We got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's live postcast episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. This is the number one place that you should be headed, especially if you're a small business looking to add to your team. Those additions can always feel like high-stakes wagers, so put yourself in the best position to win with LinkedIn Jobs. You can use LinkedIn Jobs to get simple additional tools like screening questions so you can easily make decisions on the folks that you want to talk to and eventually hire. LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. Just head over to linkedinjobs.com, or rather linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Once again, post your job for free today at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode of Locked On Saints also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. If you didn't place a bet on the New Orleans Saints to cover their 3-point spread, then you're in a good mood today. But if you didn't place any bets, and if you still haven't over at FanDuel, now is the time to do it because they have a fantastic deal going on. If you are putting down your first $5 with FanDuel, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Those are more bonus bets you can use on player spreads, player props, all those other things. And no matter what, you put those $5 down, you're going to get $100 off of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You're not going to want to miss this, so head over to FanDuel.com/LockedOn to kick off the NFL season with a fantastic deal. FanDuel, official partners of the NFL. All right, family, continuing on and wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints. Big thank you to everybody here for this live show here, live from the Caesars Superdome on the ground level here, right on the field where the New Orleans Saints had their victory 16-15 over the Tennessee Titans. We just raved and raved and raved about the New Orleans Saints defense, which was absolutely outstanding. But to Rip LaBeouf and a couple of other folks that are here in the chat, you're right. The New Orleans Saints offense needs some improvements, and the big-time improvements that it needs are going to be on the offensive line. Now, the Saints offensive line looked a lot better in the second half than it did in the first half. The Saints getting Trevor Penning some help over on that left side, but also improved play from Trevor Penning as well. Penning has always been this guy coming into the NFL where everybody knew exactly what it was and where it was that he was going to have to develop, and that was as a pass protector. He's fantastic. He's a mauler in the run game. He's a phenomenal run blocker. He's got that grit, that tenacity, all those things that you love to see from a guy, especially of his size. But one of the biggest things that everybody knew was that him developing further as a pass protector was a must. Here in his second career start, got a little worked by guys like Arden Key, who, of course, New Orleans Saints fans probably know well during his time from the LSU Tigers. So Trevor Penning, you're going to want to see some big-time improvements for him going into the New Orleans Saints next game. Brian Burns, some of the other guys over there in Carolina, nothing to shake a stick at over at that Carolina Panthers defense. And this is a very, very good defense, the Tennessee Titans. And this game, I don't think, is indicative of who the Titans are for the rest of the season. Similarly, I would have said the same thing if the Saints would have dropped this game game, especially at this score and this close, not really indicative of who they are for the rest of the season. And we're hoping that that's the case for the New Orleans Saints offense moving forward. Saints offense looked good at some times, not so great at others. They looked really good in the scripted, first few plays where they got the ball down the field, but then stymied in the red zone. But then later on, you saw them executing extremely well in the red zone with that fantastic double move to the outside to Rashid Shaheed right in that end zone, just about maybe where I'm on the 50-yard line, so 50 yards away and then some. A fantastic play, and those are the types of things that you want to see. And that's a great play call. That's a great play design. There's a lot of creativity there. We saw Chris Olave running from out of the backfield, angle routes, these Texas routes in the receiving game. The Saints scheme has taken a lot of strides and a lot of steps forward from where it was last year as kind of being this anemic, somewhat myopic, not very imaginative offense. You saw motion before plays. You saw the eye candy. You saw the misdirection. You saw a lot of those types of improvements from this New Orleans Saints offense in this game that went a long way when it was time for it to, but struggled to find that success early. So what you want to see from the New Orleans Saints moving forward is going to be a little bit stronger, really not even a little bit stronger coming out of the gate, but just the ability to maintain some momentum coming out of the gate. I think that's the biggest thing. The offense in the opening drive, the big connections to Michael Thomas early, you saw some plays going to the tight ends, all that. They didn't really get the run game going very well early on, but it showed up when they needed it late. Jamal Williams sealing the deal on that little run right up the middle or over to the right, over on the far end zone to get that first down, to seal it, fumbled the ball, but quickly recovered it. That's that Kaji energy that you want to see from him. So you can see where the New Orleans Saints have the things that will take them up to the next level over on the offensive side. You just want to find it to be a little bit more consistent early on, and that's going to take improved offensive line play, and it's also just going to take getting through some of the growing pains that we knew we were going to see from this New Orleans Saints offense with a new quarterback, new pieces, all these other things. But really, really good stuff for the most part from this New Orleans Saints team in terms of closing it out. Derek Carr, third active quarterback in the NFL when it comes to game-winning drives. Didn't need to pull out a game-winning drive in this game, but did need that game-sealing drive at the end. That was a big reason why the New Orleans Saints went after Derek Carr and why they felt like he would be a good addition to this team was because of his in-game ability. We saw him and Rashid Shaheed connect on a big 40-plus yard deep ball on a play that he and Rashid Shaheed brought to Pete Carmichael and said, now's the time for the double move on the outside. We want to do it. Pete Carmichael, Dennis Allen, trusting the players and saying, go out there and do what you got to do. Go and make it happen. And they did. And those are the things that I think you're going to see that are a little bit different about this New Orleans Saints team. The quarterback being able to step up and say, hey, I like this play in this moment. We're running it right now, right? Like those types of things. That's a lot more familiar of an offensive sort of game plan from what we've seen in the New Orleans Saints in the past. So that's really good stuff to see there. So I think that when it comes down to where you want to see the New Orleans Saints go next, right? They've got the Carolina Panthers on Monday night. They kind of get that little bit of extra rest, that extra day of rest coming up, and they'll exchange that for one fewer day of rest over on the opposite side. But after a big physical victory like this, where you saw Peyton Turner leave the field, he was questionable to return with a toe injury. We'll get more information on that. We saw Marshon Lattimore leave the field, Chris Olave leave the field, Alontae Taylor leave the field. So those are all going to be names that you're going to be watching. Olave, Taylor, and Marshon Lattimore all finished the game out on the field. They should be all good, but now we just kind of wait and see how health rolls over into this next week for the New Orleans Saints. And then, of course, you want to see the improved offensive line play going up against the Carolina Panthers next week, protecting the quarterback, keeping this New Orleans Saints offense calm as opposed to sort of the frenetic nature that can come with a lot of pressure by a very good defensive line in Carolina. So those are going to be kind of the big things that you're going to be waiting to see going into this next game against the Carolina Panthers. So the Saints have some clear improvements, but as long as that defense plays just like it played today or nearly as good as it played today all throughout this season, the New Orleans Saints are going to be in position to win just about every game that they won or that they're going to be in here. Oh, and by the way, how about... Yeah, it was a tough fumble for Jamal Williams for sure. How about Blake Grupe going for the 3 field goals, right, including a 52-yarder, and his debut as an undrafted free agent rookie kicker that replaced a guy that the Saints trusted for 6-7 years over on that side of the football. We also saw Will Lutz miss an extra point over in Denver with Sean Payton. So what about a great day for Blake Grupe, who just had a phenomenal debut. Hopefully that's who Blake Grupe is throughout this season, because that was a big difference for the New Orleans Saints in this game. We talked about special teams being a big difference maker, flipping the field, doing all those things, but also just putting points on the board in a game where points were at a premium. Blake Grupe was able to help get that done. All right, y'all, coming up tomorrow morning, we'll have a brand new episode for you, a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the numbers of this game, what we learned, and what we want to see improve. Derek Carr throwing for 305 yards. Saints only had 2 games last year over 300 passing yards, both of them losses. What does that set up Derek Carr to do this season, as well as the rest of the New Orleans Saints offense? We're going to break all of that down in tomorrow's episode. I appreciate y'all, as always, for being here for another live episode of Locked On Saints. LM Tab, Natcha, see you. K Moyea, see you. Nick Jennings, Calvin, I appreciate all of y'all for being here and more, whether you're catching the show live or you're catching it later. You know I love you. Here we are. Season is underway. The New Orleans Saints are 1-0, and it's time for another fun week here at Locked On Saints. I appreciate you, as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day, for making me a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi, and if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation, I'll holla at you.